I found the listing on a forum, not eBay, just a user named Noel Polly selling a Toys R Us limited edition gold Nintendo 64, console only, for $50. I froze. That console usually goes for hundreds. It was the holy grail, that translucent gold plastic that glowed like amber under a lamp. I jumped on it immediately. When it arrived, there was a cartridge jammed into the slot already. No label, just gray plastic with Mario written in Sharpie on the jagged top edge. I hooked it up to my old CRT in the spare room. I wanted that authentic fuzz, that high-pitched whine of the tube warming up that lets you know you're about to run your eyes for the next few hours. The boot up was normal. The spinning Nintendo logo, the giant 3D Mario head. I messed with it for a few seconds, stretching his nose, pulling his ear. He looked tired. Not the bouncy plumber I remember. His eyes didn't seem to track the cursor. They were staring dead center. It was almost as if he was staring right at me. "Rough night, buddy?" I muttered, letting the stick snap back to neutral. I pressed start. There was only one save file. Empty. 0 stars. But the playtime read 99 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Gotta respect the grind. I laughed, assuming it was a glitch. I selected it. Mario pipes out of the ground, and that's when I noticed the sound, or the lack of it. There was no wind, no birds chirping, no upbeat adventurous music, just the dull thud of Mario's boots hitting the grass. I tapped the side of my TV. Nothing. Terrific, I sighed, leaning back in my chair. I must have bought a brick. Remind me to send Noel Polly a strongly worded DM about selling busted audio chips. I ran around the perimeter anyway. The drawbridge was down. I looked up for Lakitu, the little camera guy on the cloud who usually hovers behind you. The sky was empty. The camera was just fixed, following me but detached. I ran inside the castle. Hello? I pressed the button for a punch, just to hear Mario's voice. Silence. He threw the punch, but he didn't make a sound. It felt weirdly heavy, like watching a mime fight for his life. The main lobby was dead. No toads to talk to, no sunlight streaming from the ceiling mosaic. The lighting was flat, like a hospital hallway at 3 a.m. Is this a beta version or something? I whispered. The silence in the room was starting to make my own voice sound too loud. I started running toward the stairs to the second floor, and that's when I saw it. At the far left of the screen, behind the pillar leading to Babam Battlefield, a texture flickered. It wasn't a Goomba or a Koopa. It looked like a smudge of black pixels, jagged and wrong. I moved the analog stick to turn the camera. The smudge jerked back behind the pillar, hiding. My heart did a weird flutter. Okay, dirty cartridge pins, I reasoned, trying to convince myself. Just a graphical artifact. Blow on the cart, fix the world. I moved Mario closer. I slowly panned the camera around the pillar. Nothing. I decided to check the doors. The 1-star door was locked. The 3-star door was locked. But the wooden door on the right, the one that usually leads to Princess's secret slide, was slightly ajar. That texture wasn't in the original game. I pushed Mario through. Instead of the slide room, I was in a small, square room. No windows. just a single painting hanging on the far wall. I walked closer. The resolution on the N64 is blurry, potato quality, really. So you have to get right up to things to see what they are. I jumped Mario up onto the plinth so his nose was touching the canvas. I felt the blood drain out of my face. No way, I breathed. That's a mod. It has to be a hacked ROM. The painting wasn't a landscape. It was a room. It had beige walls, a desk in the corner, a messy pile of cables I'd been meaning to organize for weeks. And in the center of the painting, there was a glowing blue square, a TV. It was my room. It was a low poly 64-bit render of the room I was sitting in right now. I squinted at the screen. In the painting, sitting in front of the glowing blue TV, was a figure. It was facing away from the camera, holding a controller. It was me. Then, from the speakers, the ones I thought were broken, a sound finally played. It sounded like dry skin dragging against carpet. I instinctively looked away from the TV to the hallway of my actual house. Nothing but darkness. Okay, screw this, I said, my voice trembling. I looked back at the screen. On the TV, the black smudge I'd seen behind the pillar was now there. It was standing in the doorway of the painted room, standing behind the painted version of me. I spun around in my chair, ripping the headphones off. My room was empty, just the hum of the CRT. I looked back at the game. The entity in the painting wasn't moving, but Mario was. Without me touching the controller, Mario slowly turned his head away from the painting, looking out of the screen, directly at me. Then, the text box appeared at the bottom of the screen. It said, "It's behind you." I didn't wait to see if Mario had any more advice. My body moved before my brain could even process the text. My hand shot out and ripped the AC adapter out of the wall socket so hard I heard the plastic housing crack. In the same motion, I kicked my chair back. It toppled over with a loud clatter, and I scrambled backward. I didn't walk. I basically crab walked, heels digging into the carpet, until my back slammed against the cold drywall of the corner. Nope, absolutely not. I was hyperventilating, my chest heaving like I just sprinted a mile. From the safety of the corner, I swept the room with my eyes, scanning every shadow, every inch of the space behind where I'd been sitting. The doorway to the hall, empty. The closet door, shut. The pile of laundry on the floor, just laundry. There was nothing there. No black smudge, no glitchy monster. Just my messy spare room, plunged into silence now that the console's hum was dead. Jesus, Dave, I whispered, clutching my chest. You're a grown man. It's a texture hack. It's just code. I let out a shaky breath, feeling the adrenaline start to curdle into embarrassment. I looked over at the TV. Because it was an old CRT, the image didn't cut to black instantly. It was doing that slow fade, the picture collapsing inward into a bright white dot in the center of the screen before vanishing. As the gray glass of the screen went dark, I caught my own reflection in it. I was a faint, ghostly silhouette huddled in the corner, distorted by the curve of the tube. I raised a trembling hand to wipe the sweat from my eyes. My hand brushed my forehead. In the TV screen, my reflection's hands stayed on the floor. My breath hitched in my throat. I froze, my hand still pressed to my face, staring at the gray glass. "Okay," I croaked, my voice sounding incredibly small. That's just a trick of the light. Angles. Parallax." I slowly lowered my hand. I waved it back and forth, broad and frantic, like I was trying to flag down a taxi. The reflection didn't wave back. It sat there, statue still, staring at me. Then, it moved. It didn't mimic me. It moved with a fluid, unnatural smoothness, like an animation running at 60 frames per second while I was stuck in real time. The reflection slowly uncoiled from the corner. It stood up. It dusted off its knees. My knees. It looked around the reflected room, which looked identical to mine, except for one detail. In the reflection, the closet door was open. The reflection turned back to the glass. It walked forward until its face was huge in the screen, staring out at me. It smiled. But it wasn't a human smile. It was that same stretched, low-poly distortion I had seen on that Mario title screen. The corners of its mouth pulled back way too far, revealing teeth that looked like a single, jagged block of white. It raised a finger and pointed. Not at me. It pointed slightly to my left, toward the actual closet door in my actual room. I didn't look at the closet. I didn't wait to see if the reflection was lying. A primal switch flipped in my brain. I pushed off the wall with my heels, scrambling upright in a clumsy, desperate lunge toward the bedroom door. My hand was inches from the doorknob when I heard it. The sound of the closet door hitting the stopper. Hard. I yanked the bedroom door open, throwing my weight against the frame to pivot into the hallway. As I swung around to grab the outer handle, my line of sight swept past the room for a fraction of a second. I saw it. It wasn't a man. It was a blur of wrongness, a jagged, upright smudge of beige and black pixels snapping forward at impossible speed. Then, halfway across the room, it stopped. Instantly. From a full sprint to a dead freeze in a single frame. It stood there, vibrating. It had no face, no eyes, just that mouth. It flashed a smile at me, a wide, stretched texture of white blocky teeth. It launched. It didn't run. It glitched across the remaining distance. 1 second it was in the center of the room. The next it was a blur of teeth inches from my face. I slammed the door. The wood shuddered against my back as something massive impacted it from the other side. Dust rained down from the frame. I didn't stop to breathe. I scrambled backward, slipping on the hardwood in my socks, nearly wiping out as I backed into the living room. Behind me, the bedroom door handle didn't jiggle. It didn't rattle. It just stopped. I stood in the middle of my living room, chest heaving, staring down the dark hallway. My car keys were on the kitchen counter. The front door was 10 feet away. Then, from the kitchen, behind me, I heard a sound. The sound of heavy boots hitting the floor. The exact same sound effect from the game. I froze. I didn't turn around. I didn't reach for the keys. My brain screamed run, but my body was locked in absolute terror. Then, right behind my ear, so close I could feel the vibration of it, I heard that sound again. I felt an intense, crushing pressure on all sides, like I was being squeezed through a tight rubber hose. It was dark, suffocating, and fast. Then, I shot upward. I burst out of something tight and circular into blinding brightness. My body moved on its own. My knees tucked to my chest, my arms threw themselves wide in a celebratory pose. I felt myself flip in the air, a perfect, pre-programmed somersault. I hit the ground. I stuck the landing perfectly. My knees bent to absorb the impact, then snapped back up. I was standing on a flat, green texture. Behind me, a giant green pipe slowly lowered itself back into the ground until it vanished. I tried to gasp, to suck in air, but my chest didn't expand. It felt like I didn't have lungs anymore. I tried to look down at my hands. I couldn't. My neck was locked in a forward-facing coordinate. I could see the peripheral vision of a white castle, sharp, jagged polygons against a painfully blue sky, but I couldn't turn my head to see it fully. I was trapped inside of a statue. I tried to scream, "Where am I? What is this?" My internal monologue was screaming at a deafening volume, but externally, silence. Absolute, dead silence. Then, the sky shifted. It wasn't a sky. It was a screen. And looking down through it, filling the entire horizon, was a face. It was a guy. A stranger. He looked tired. He was wearing a gray hoodie, sitting in a dark room that looked just like mine. He was holding a controller. He looked bored. He moved his thumbstick forward. My body lurched. I didn't choose to move. I was yanked. My legs began to pump in a perfect, pre-programmed loop. I watched the green grass slide beneath my feet. I waited for the music. I waited for the upbeat Ba-Bomb Battlefield theme. Nothing. Just the sound of my own feet hitting the ground. It was the exact same sound I had heard in my kitchen. Dry, heavy, hollow. The giant in the sky stopped the stick. I skidded to a halt, dust clouds puffing up around my boots.
Huh?
The giant muttered. His voice boomed down from the heavens, muffled by the glass of the screen.
Audio is busted? Figures.
I screamed in my mind. "I'm here! Stop! Unplug it!" The giant pressed the B button. My arm shot out. A punch. Silence. No whoosh. Just the empty animation. The giant sighed.
Whatever. Let's see if the save works.
He pushed the stick forward again. My body obeyed. I ran toward the castle. I felt the crushing horror settle in. The castle was empty because I was the content. There was no Goombas. There were no Koopas. There was just me. I ran across the wooden bridge. I ran into the main lobby. The giant moved the camera. My head swiveled to the left. I looked at the pillar near the Ba-Bomb Battlefield door.
Is that a glitch?
The giant whispered. He was looking at the texture behind the pillar. He was looking at the previous owner. And I realized what was about to happen. I wasn't just Mario. I was the bait. The giant marched me toward the door, toward the painting, toward the trap. I kept running. I had no choice.